What if you could force your brain to keep learning even while your body is dead asleep? It sounds like science fiction, but for the learning elite, it's just one piece of a hidden system that allows them to skip the line while everyone else is stuck in the crowd. But here's the catch. Most people fail because they try to use these skills in isolation. But these skills only work if they stack. Each skill is the unlock for the one that follows. To get the 10x return on your learning, you have to follow the blueprint in the exact order it's laid out, starting with the way you anchor information into your brain. The Lattice Method. Most people learn new stuff as isolated pieces. You study something new and keep it in a separate compartment from everything else you know. Because the new thing has nothing to connect to, it doesn't stick. That's why you can read a great book, feel smarter for a day, and remember almost nothing a month later. You're collecting bricks, but you have no mortar to keep them in place. The Lattice Method is about connecting new ideas to what you already know. It's called structural anchoring. Your brain isn't a filing cabinet. It's more like a web made up of your past experiences. To learn a new, complex concept in record time, you must hook it onto an existing memory. When you force a connection between a new idea and a permanent memory, your brain treats it as part of the structure. That means you don't have to rely on brute memorization. You're using what you already know as support beams so the new idea stays in place. Let's say you're learning about compound interest. Don't just look at the math. Anchor it to something you already understand, like gym progress, for example. You know that one workout does nothing, but 100 workouts create a transformation. And each workout builds on the gain of the last workout. You anchor the financial math to your muscle memory. Now, you aren't just memorizing a formula, you're creating a mental shortcut. Months later, you won't struggle to recall the definition of compound interest. You'll simply think of the gym, and the financial logic will automatically trigger. This makes it physically impossible to forget, because the data is now part of a larger, permanent structure. The Lattice Method gives you understanding, but understanding alone doesn't make you act. To move from knowing to doing without hesitation, you need direct-to-output learning, DTO. Most people stay stuck in passive learning, reading books, watching tutorials, and taking notes to feel ready. It's the illusion of competence. You understand the ideas, but your brain hasn't built the wiring to actually use them. DTO means you ship directly to output, which is actually doing the task, without lingering around the input, which is the preparation part. It's based on something called failure-induced neuroplasticity. Your brain is efficient. It won't build new neural pathways unless it feels a real need. And nothing creates that need faster than trying, failing, and needing to fix it. And that failure sends a high-priority message to your brain telling it to build a new connection for solving the problem. You learn faster because you're forcing the brain to fix mistakes in real time. If you're learning a new language, don't spend 6 months on an app. Go to a coffee shop today and try to order in that language. When you stumble and can't find the word for milk, your brain will lock in that word the moment you look it up, because it has an immediate, high-stakes gap to fill. If you want to become good at writing, don't just keep reading guides and outlines. Write and publish something immediately, even if rough. The feedback forces you to rewrite, rephrase, or restructure. Each bad draft forces a better product. You don't become a writer by thinking about writing. You become one by writing, failing, and fixing in public. That's failure-induced neuroplasticity in action. DTO learning builds the muscles, but it can lead to burnout if you try to learn everything this way. To keep this speed sustainable, you have to stop trying to master the whole subject and start Pareto pruning. What if you could get most of the results from just a small part of the effort? Pareto pruning means using the 80-20 rule to learn smarter, not harder. In almost any skill, a small number of things do most of the work. About 20% of the ideas create 80% of the results. For example, in a language, about 600 common words make up over 80% of daily conversations. In coding, about 5 logic patterns solve most problems. Pruning means you deliberately focus on these high-impact basics first and ignore the rest until they're solid. So instead of trying to learn everything, you master what matters most and let the rest come later. To find the vital 20% without guessing, use what you can call a frequency versus impact filter. Before you start learning, look at people who are already good at the skill and ask one simple question. What are the few things they do every single day? The actions they repeat most often and create the biggest results are your 20%. To learn cooking, you don't need 100 recipes. You need 3 fundamentals: heat control, knife skills, and seasoning. Master these, and you can cook most dishes without a recipe book. If you're learning marketing, don't start with every platform. Start with copywriting, the words that make people take action. Copywriting is a root skill. When you improve it, everything else in marketing improves too. So instead of spreading your effort thin, you aim it at the small set of skills that quietly power everything else. If Pareto pruning is about selection, that is, choosing the right 20%, then syntopic aggression is about validation, making sure that 20% is actually true. Every learning resource has a bias. If you only learn from one source, you aren't learning a subject, you're learning an opinion. Syntopic aggression is the process of triangulating the truth. Instead of reading one book from start to finish, you look at 5 books simultaneously, focusing only on the specific 20% you identified earlier. Where all 5 authors agree, you've found a fundamental truth. Where they disagree, you've found the noise. This allows you to strip away the filler and master the core of a subject with total confidence. If you're learning negotiation, don't just read one former FBI negotiator's book. Compare his big ideas with a top sports agent and a corporate mediator. You'll notice they all use different words for the same core moves. Those core moves are the strategies that actually matter in the real world. By ignoring the 300 pages of stories and fluff in each book, you've essentially mined the gold from 3 books in the same time it takes an average learner to read half of the first book. Pruning and syntopic aggression help you identify the path that matters most. But to stay on track, you need a system that locks in your focus automatically. That's the Pavlovian Flow. High performers don't wait for focus. They trigger it with something called semantic priming. Your brain is built to link feelings with places, sounds, and actions. That's why a certain song can instantly change your mood, or a smell can take you back to a memory. You can use this deliberately. If you always study with the same setup, same desk, same music, or the same scent, you can train your brain to enter a high-performance state the second you sit down. You aren't forcing your mind to work, you're simply giving it the signal it's been trained to obey. To build your focus trigger, choose one unique sensory signal and use it exclusively for your 20% high-leverage work. Choose one object just for focused work, a chair, a desk, or even a lamp. If that lamp is only on when you're deeply working, your brain starts to link the light with concentration. After a while, flipping the switch alone says, distractions off, focus on. Pick one sound or one smell that you use only for deep work. Could be white noise or a specific scent, like cinnamon for instance. Use it every time you start your high-leverage work, and very soon, that signal alone will tell your brain, it's time to focus. The key is zero overlap. If you use your focus chair to scroll Instagram, the signal gets weak. If you play your work music while chilling, the link breaks. The focus switch turns your brain on, but the Zeigarnik Loop ensures it never turns off. Most people think learning stops the moment they close their books, but the elite know how to keep their mental engine running 24/7. Your brain has a biological obsession with unfinished tasks. This is the Zeigarnik effect. When you leave a project or a thought incomplete, your brain treats it like an open wound that it must heal. It creates a background tension that forces your subconscious to keep chewing on the problem while you're eating, walking, or even sleeping. You aren't just resting, you are outsourcing the hardest part of learning to your subconscious mind. To learn while you sleep, you must practice intentional incompletion. Never finish your study session at a logical stopping point, like the end of a chapter. Instead, stop right in the middle of a complex paragraph or an unsolved problem. The bedtime prime, 5 minutes before sleep, look at the most difficult big idea from your learning material. Don't try to solve it, just look at it. Because the loop is open, your brain will spend the night trying to close it. This is why you often wake up with a flash of insight or a sudden clarity on a topic that seemed impossible the night before. You've turned your 8 hours of sleep into 8 hours of passive processing. Using the Zeigarnik Loop feels like magic because it's effortless. But to ensure the knowledge your subconscious is building is actually solid, you need to put it through the ultimate stress test, the Feynman Technique. Most people mistake fluency for knowledge. Just because you can repeat the words in a book doesn't mean you understand the mechanics of the idea. The Feynman Technique is a logical stress test designed to find the holes in your thinking. It's based on the idea that if you can't explain a complex concept to a 10-year-old, you don't actually know it, you've just memorized a sound. By stripping away jargon, you force your brain to rebuild the idea from its most basic, unbreakable parts. Take a blank sheet of paper and explain your big idea as if you were talking to a child. You aren't allowed to use technical words. If you're explaining the Lattice Method, you can't use words like structural anchoring. You have to say, it's like building a shelf so your memories have a place to sit. The moment you struggle to find a simple word, you've found a blind spot. That specific gap is where your shortcut is broken. Go back to your sources, fix that one link, and repeat. We've covered 7 ways to outthink and outlearn everyone else. But even if you follow this blueprint perfectly, your own mind is eventually going to try and sabotage you. It's going to tell you that you're not smart enough or that the work is too hard. To make the rest of this system bulletproof, you need cognitive reframing. The biggest obstacle to hyperlearning isn't your brain's capacity. It's how you handle frustration. When you hit a topic that makes your head hurt, your brain mistakes it for a threat, triggers a stress response that makes you want to quit, check your phone, or walk away. Most people think that mental wall means they've hit their limit. That frustration is actually our brain's signal that it's growing. Cognitive reframing just means changing the label you put on that feeling. You aren't struggling, you're just feeling the friction of your brain physically rewiring itself to be faster. To keep your momentum, you have to change how you talk to yourself when things get difficult. The click hack. When you run into a confusing paragraph or a problem you can't solve, don't say, "I'm not getting this." Instead, tell yourself, "This is the exact moment my brain is upgrading." It sounds small, but it stops the stress response so you can stay focused. The sweat metric. If you go to the gym and the weights feel light, you aren't getting stronger, you're just going through the motions. If a study session feels easy, you're likely wasting time on stuff you already know. Start looking for the heavy parts. If it feels difficult, you're moving 10 times faster than everyone else who's stuck in easy mode. By chasing the hard parts instead of running from them, you stop the burnout that kills most people's progress. You actually start to look for the confusion because you know that's where the real growth is hidden. By mastering cognitive reframing, you've turned your biggest weakness into your greatest power. You now have the full blueprint. But remember, a plan is useless if you never start the build. Your mission is simple. Pick one thing you've been avoiding because it felt too hard. Spend just 20 minutes on it today. The moment it feels difficult and you want to quit, remind yourself that's the exact second you're actually getting smarter. Stop being the worker and start being the architect. I'll see you in the next one.